Welcome back, watch fans. So one of the things that a lot of times we do see actually kind of pitted against each other, or a lot of people will actually question us to say, well, when you're looking at these two pieces, they're so commonly worn, they're so popular, but which one is maybe better? And a lot of times when people are thinking of that, they're looking at the Omega 300M, and they're also going to be looking at the Rolex Submariner. Well, today we're going to look a little bit deeper. We're going to go to the next size of it, kind of what a lot of us like to joke and call the dad belly of watches. So we're going to be looking at the Rolex Deepsea Seadweller and the Omega Ultra Deep. Now, when Omega released the Ultra Deep in 2022, it was one of those pieces that we all had to stop and actually say, oh, that was very, very well done. It would actually move in at 6,000 meters, which was going to be a little bit different than what we were actually finding on the deep sea, which we were actually used to its depth itself. And Rolex would even say, hey, no, this same year for 2022, we're going to release the challenge. That one is actually going to be even deeper in depth and is going to go to 11,000 meters for the actual diving depth. But these two watches really give us some really unique pieces, but they also give some features that really challenge each other. And this is our opportunity to actually see them both together, side by side, and for you to tell us which one you think is actually a little bit more you, or would you say actually gives the step above in your personal opinion? When we're looking at these two watches, we'll of course start off with the Ultra Deep. This is one that everyone has not seen. So when we're starting off with the Ultra Deep, it's gonna give us quite a few features. Even the dial itself gives a new blue feature that we have not seen before from Omega. And I actually like it because it actually challenges the James Cameron version of this particular watch style. And when you're looking at the two battling, I chose these two dials because if I'm going to be looking at dial for dial, I would love to see them next to each other. That way I can actually get my personal opinion informed of how I really feel about the two watches in difference. I do love some of the fun features that you will actually get in the Ultra Deep, including the actual click spring on this watch. There's 120 clicks on this. Very accurate, precise when it actually comes to the timing itself when you're looking at using this as a professional tool. One of the other features that I actually really enjoy on this is that the actual dot that's going to be at the top, which is going to be your marker for your minutes, and the minute hand are separate colors than the rest of the hands actually on the watch when they're illuminated. So this is something that you're going to see in the dark. Again, when we're looking at it in bright light or under natural light, you're not going to see that, which I think is really fun because it keeps everything nice and uniformed. However, when I'm actually using it for its professional purpose, I can really see the difference because the minute hand, again, is going to line up in color with the actual dot for timing. That's actually really fun. I feel like that's a feature that should be on pretty much every professional diving watch because it makes it easier for that diver to be able to read. We already have a watch that's massive in size. This one at 45.5 millimeters definitely is going to give us a nice size on the wrist. So if you do have a wrist size that is 16 or above, it's actually going to look really good on you. Having these football hands, this actually looks a little bit more normal on me when you're actually looking at proportions, because we do want to make sure that the watch actually fits your profile. Your profile is how it actually falls on your wrist, because we're not all professional divers. In fact, if you see me in waters that deep, just know that it was probably a bad bet. He was Italian and there are bricks tied to my feet, because I'm not personally going that deep for anything. But I actually love the fact that the watch is made to do that. And the fact that it does forward following function gives me everything that I'm still wanting on the watch itself. I do love the actual ceramic bezel that's still going to be in black. And the way that the fading is actually done on this particular one, it fades from the center and goes outwards with the blue. I think that that's actually really fun as well. The way that the actual case is tapered and actually polished, it gives it where it's not too thick, because the thickness of the watch still allows you to be able to wear it with sleeves. However, it is not intended for that. Do remember that this is actually a dive watch or a professional watch, so it does have its purpose and why it's that thick. But for those of us who actually love a heavier piece, want something that's a little bit more meatier, this is actually really cool for an everyday wear as well. Now, when we're looking at this piece and we want to compare it, the James Cameron is the only place that we could actually go. With the James Cameron, this is actually who created that dial color change that we all really loved and felt like we wanted to see in person. Seeing this one in person there is a little bit difference. The dial name on this is called D Blue. Now, D Blue actually refers to the fact that this is not fading from blue to black. And you will hear that from a lot of people. However, at Rolex, we were always taught that this is actually fading from blue to blue. Yes, that lower color is a deeper, darker color of blue. It is not a black, which I actually felt that that was really fun for Rolex to take the time to actually use that as the feature, especially being that this would be a watch that would actually be related to the Mariana Trenches and with James Cameron for that particular dive. Again, with this watch, the history itself, there was not enough time for them to actually create a new watch, but there was enough time to create a new dial. And so this is what it actually represents in that dive, is it's representing the color of the ocean as you begin to get lower in depth, because it's actually going to change in color, of course, with the lack of light. I absolutely love how this case has actually been refinished. This is actually, it's now 3rd generation. So when we look at the different features, the original one would actually be a little bit thicker. It would be a little bit longer lugs, whereas the 3rd generation, which this is a 136660, this one has actually been tailored to perfection, and it was done so during the same release year as the Ultra, which was 2022. This particular one now does not have that wetsuit extension. That's one of the things that's been removed. And I actually find that to be a little bit better when we're looking at this watch. However, it does keep the quick glide where you can actually size the watch by lifting up on the tab. You can actually slide for the glide lock. So if you're needing that extra extension or that extra room over your wetsuit, you still do have that. Or if you're wanting that wetsuit extension, you still can have that installed as well. I think that's a really cool feature to be able to install it if I need it professionally. But when I'm wearing this watch on an everyday basis, I'm probably going to be wearing it with something a little bit more simplistic when it comes to whether a collared shirt or a turtleneck or sweater, different things like that, where I'm not really going to be using that extension at all. This piece is one that actually, when it released, it all grabbed our attention and grabbed our heart. I remember actually having a 5-year wait list on this particular piece, and that was from the first day that it was actually going to be released. We had a few people around the world who were given the watch to wear as just simple ambassadors of the brand itself and some of our favorite VIP customers. But this watch would stand the test of times, and it's still been going so amazingly that it has required a 3rd generation being made, because Rolex has just wanted to fine tune every detail. Looking at these watches and comparing them side by side, we actually have the ability to see them next to each other. Most people will never see these two watches. So SwissWatchExpo is trying to give you that opportunity to see them and be able to decide what you think personally and professionally you would actually use out of these two. Now, we're going to have a 70-hour power reserve on the James Cameron versus on the Ultra Deep. We do have a 60-hour power reserve. However, even though we're losing 10 hours, the Omega is actually going to regulate a little bit different because it does have twin barrels actually on the movement itself. It does actually release the time more evenly. So it does keep a little bit more accuracy. In fact, they go from 0 to 2 seconds in difference, whereas the Rolex can go from +2 to -2. Yes, Omega does have the timing down a little bit more. Now, you will see that they are both chronometers. However, you'll see with Omega, they actually have Metis testing, whereas Rolex is going to have their superlative chronometer testing. Those are two things where it really becomes a little bit more personal about the brand itself. You'll even see Tudor is now using Metis, which Tudor is the cooler little brother to Rolex. Now, with Rolex's testing, yes, they are going to be using an outside source for testing the actual pressure and depth for the amount of depth that the watch itself can actually go to. It's actually 125%. That's actually going to be really different and really unique to have that outside company do. And Rolex would even say, hey, Metis is in every country. Everyone can actually use their own Metis, and they're going to give a different outside scaling. So it's really fun to hear people's thoughts and opinions when it actually comes to that outside testing for Metis as well. But we want to know what you think when you see these two watches. Which one for you would be more wearable? Tell us in the comments below here at SwissWatchExpo.